The Big Five personality assessment is by far and away like the most supported in personality psychology, like through academic testing and validating, as compared to some that you may have heard of, such as like the MBTI or Myers-Briggs, is quite popular just amongst like the general population, but it's not as consistent in what it's measuring, and it's mainly used because it's easy to digest, even though it's not accurate in what it's telling you. So what we wanted to do was start with what psychologists agree on is like the best tool to use, build it on top of that in some way that makes it more digestible and understandable for folks, so you're actually using the most precise descriptions of your behavior and are able to use that to either adjust your behavior or lean into using your strengths and avoiding your personal weaknesses. And I guess to give some more background on it, it was developed by looking at how we as people just define behavior or personality. And there's like thousands and thousands, like over 18,000 adjectives describing people. Like when you say like, oh, that person has a good personality, we use literally thousands of words to describe that. And what the psychologists did was factor analysis. Is they started slowly grouping these things down, collapsing on synonyms, getting rid of duplicates, all until they found 5 big buckets. So the big five big buckets of categories of behavior. And that's what the assessment's based on, is reflecting to you 5 core and different ways you behave in the world.
Right. And so yeah, the thing that we've come across now is when people take this assessment, there are these extremely conserved patterns that, well, people fall into categories basically, right? Not just the big 5, but when you have this assessment, you'll be rated on each of these 5 categories, and then there's a total of 30 facets total of 30 facets across the board. So 6 facets per category. And what we call the graph that comes out of this is a shape of a person. So
real quick, what's a facet?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the facets are the subcategories of the big 5 factors. So there's a little bit more variability across implementations of the big 5 for facets, but they're still highly conserved. It's essentially just getting another layer of paint per color, right? If each of the 5 categories are a color, you get more detail, actually is a better way of saying it, from the facets. So like we can dig into one of them, which is like, let's go into extroversion, right? Extroversion, a lot of people think of one of the facets exclusively, which is gregariousness, right? Gregariousness is actually how outgoing you are and like how likely you are to strike up a conversation with a stranger. Well, there's a few other ones. Another one, for example, inside of extroversion is activity. That's like how likely you are to like do a lot of stuff, right? So that's just an example of some facets. We won't go through every single one of those. If you are curious about that, we actually have a lot of material on our YouTube describing the different parts of your personality. We won't get into it here, but we are going to get into sort of the implications of this. And one of them is this thing I'm driving towards, which is shape. So you get this, you take this assessment, you get these results, and you have this shape. And the shape describes essentially how you fit into the world, like what your behavioral tendencies are. Are you highly extroverted? Are you more likely to disagree with someone? Are you very nervous and anxious and self-conscious, right? Neurotic? Are you, for example, you can use this shape to answer questions like, are you more likely if someone says, would you like to go get some booger flavored ice cream, to say yes or no based on your attributes?
I have tried the vomit flavored Harry Potter jelly bean before.
Right, exactly. Have you tried that?
Mistake, but I had to do it.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to know, right? And that's because of your openness. Right. So yeah, I think that's a good introduction to what shape is. And I want to flesh out like one last thing on this, which is we've discovered that if you fit your shape, meaning if you act according to like what your default behavioral tendencies are, your intrinsic behavioral tendencies, if you find a way to live in the world without changing how you're shaped, I can't think of a better way of saying it. You're going to get energy from your days. You're going to be able to recharge doing your normal day each day. And if you act out of shape, and we can elaborate on this more, you're going to find yourself drained each day. You're like the activities you do that are out of shape, you might find yourself really drained. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, it's just to drive the shape piece home. We call it shape because if you imagine those 30 subcategories or facets as points around the perimeter of a circle, everyone has a score along each facet, which gets them closer to either the center of the circle or the perimeter. And it looks like it's like a really jagged, spiky ball at the end of it. Everyone's shape of connecting all those dots is extremely different. So it's almost like a personality thumbprint that you have. So just to give you a visual when you're thinking shape, it's basically like a jagged circle of your scores in these subcategories of personality.